The snow was falling hard outside, blanketing New York City in a quiet, icy hush on Christmas Eve. But inside the grand ballroom of the Plaza Hotel, it was a different world entirely. The air buzzed with warmth and elegance. Golden chandeliers dripping with crystals threw soft, shimmering light across the room, while a live jazz band played a slow, sultry tune that seemed to wrap around you like a warm scarf. Guests swirled through the space, their faces hidden behind elaborate masks. Some feathered, some studded with jewels, all a perfect disguise for the city's elite at this annual masquerade ball. It was the kind of night where secrets hung in the air, waiting to unravel. Liam Harper stood near the edge of the room, a tall figure cutting an impressive silhouette in his tailored black suit. At 34, he was the brains behind Harper Tech, a billion-dollar AI startup that had taken the tech world by storm. His dark hair was swept back, and a sleek black mask covered half his face, leaving only his sharp green eyes visible. Eyes that had stared down investors and sealed deals worth millions. Tonight, though, those eyes looked restless, darting over the crowd without much interest. He wasn't here to network or schmooze. He'd only come because of a cryptic note slipped under his office door 2 days ago. One night to change it all. Come alone. No signature, just elegant cursive on thick cream paper. It had piqued his curiosity, enough to drag him out of his penthouse and into this sea of strangers. Across the room, Sophie Bennett lingered near the bar, her fingers nervously tracing the stem of an empty glass. At 32, she was the COO of Nexus AI, a rival company that had been nipping at Harper Tech's heels for years. She wore a stunning emerald gown that clung to her frame, its deep green catching the light like a jewel. A silver mask glittered across her face, accentuating her warm brown eyes that carried a quiet weariness tonight. Like Liam, she'd received a mysterious invite too. Find what you've lost tonight. She'd almost tossed it in the trash, but something about it tugged at her. Maybe it was the loneliness creeping in, the kind that hits hardest when you're surrounded by people who only see your title, not your heart. So here she was, hoping for something. The bar was a natural meeting point. Liam wandered over, his bourbon long forgotten in his hand, the ice melting into a puddle. Sophie was already there, her voice soft as she spoke to the bartender. Just an orange juice, thanks. I'm not big on drinking. Her tone was light, but there was a faint sadness woven into it, like a thread you could only spot if you looked close enough. Liam caught it, though he couldn't say why it stuck with him. Maybe it was the way she stood, shoulders slightly slumped, like she was carrying something heavy she didn't want anyone to see. He stepped closer, leaning against the bar a few feet away. "Crowded tonight, huh?" he said, his voice low and casual, testing the waters. Sophie turned her head just enough to catch his gaze through her mask. For a split second, their eyes locked. Green meeting brown? And something flickered between them, quick and electric, though neither could name it. "Yeah," she replied, a small smile tugging at her lips, though it didn't quite reach her eyes. "Funny how you can feel so alone in a room this packed, don't you think?" Her words hung there, heavier than she'd meant them to be, and Liam felt them settle into his chest like they'd been meant for him. He tilted his head, studying her, the way the green of her dress seemed to glow against her skin, the way she held herself like she was both present and a million miles away. "You sound like you've been there," he said, his tone softening, curiosity creeping in. "What's your story?" Sophie hesitated, then shrugged lightly. "Oh, you know, too much work, not enough life, you?" She turned the question back on him, her brown eyes searching his face, or what she could see of it behind that black mask. Liam gave a dry chuckle, swirling the bourbon he hadn't touched. "Same, I guess. Built something big, but it's starting to feel like I lost more than I gained." He paused, surprised at his own honesty. "Ever feel like you're chasing something you don't even want anymore?" Her smile faded, replaced by a look he couldn't quite read. "All the time," she murmured almost to herself. And just like that, the noise of the party, the clinking glasses, the laughter, faded into the background. It was just the two of them, two strangers, spilling truths they hadn't planned to share, drawn together by a pull neither could explain. The jazz band shifted gears, easing into a slower, sultrier number, a soft saxophone weaving through the air like a sigh. The crowd thinned out a little as couples drifted toward the dance floor, their masks glinting under the chandeliers. Liam watched them for a moment, then turned back to the woman in the emerald dress. She was still there, cradling her orange juice like it was a lifeline, her brown eyes catching the light in a way that made them look almost golden behind that silver mask. There was something about her, something that felt familiar, though he couldn't pin it down. Maybe it was the way she tilted her head when she listened, or the quiet weight in her voice. Whatever it was, it made him want to stay. "Care to dance?" he asked, the words slipping out before he could second-guess them. He extended a hand, palm up, his green eyes steady on hers. It wasn't his usual move. He wasn't the dancing type, not anymore. But tonight felt different, like the rules didn't apply. Sophie blinked, caught off guard. She glanced at his hand, then at the dance floor glowing under the warm lights. For a second, she looked like she might say no, her shoulders tensed, her fingers tightening around her glass. Dancing meant letting go, even just a little, and she wasn't sure she had that in her tonight. But then she met his gaze again, and there was something in those green eyes. Warmth, maybe? Or a flicker of sincerity? That made her soften. "Sure," she said quietly, setting her drink down. "Why not?" He led her out to the floor, his hand brushing hers just enough to send a tiny jolt up her arm. They weren't pros by any stretch. Liam's steps were a little stiff at first, and Sophie stumbled once, laughing under her breath as she caught herself. But as the music rolled on, they found a rhythm, clumsy at first, then smoother, like they'd done this before. His hand settled on her waist, light but steady, and hers rested on his shoulder, feeling the tension in him ease with every step. The crowd blurred into a haze of color and sound, leaving just the two of them swaying under the golden glow. "You're not half bad at this," Sophie said, a teasing edge to her voice as she looked up at him. Her mask shifted slightly, revealing a hint of a smile. Liam grinned, a rare, real one that crinkled the corners of his eyes. "Don't sound so surprised. I've got a few tricks up my sleeve." He tightened his grip just a fraction, pulling her a little closer as the saxophone dipped into a long, soulful note. "What about you? You dance like this often?" "Not lately," she admitted, her voice softening. "Used to love it, though, back when life felt lighter." Her eyes drifted past him for a moment, lost in some memory she didn't share. He caught the shift in her tone, the way it dipped into something heavier. "What changed?" he asked, keeping his voice low, like he didn't want to scare her off. Sophie hesitated, her steps slowing as she thought it over. Then she sighed, a small, shaky sound. "I don't know. Work, mostly. It's funny, you chase these big dreams, thinking they'll fill you up, but then you get there and it's just empty. I used to have someone who made it all make sense, but he's gone now. Or at least, the version of him I loved is." Her words came out raw, unguarded, like she hadn't meant to say so much. Liam's chest tightened. Her story hit too close to home. "I get that," he said, his voice rougher than he intended. "I built this whole life, company, money, the works, but it cost me everything else. I've got a wife out there somewhere, but I don't even know if she'd recognize me anymore. I've been so buried in my world I forgot hers." He swallowed hard, surprised at how easy it was to tell her this, a stranger in a mask. Sophie's eyes flickered with something, recognition maybe, or just empathy. "She might still be waiting," she said softly. "People don't give up as fast as we think, but it's hard when you feel like a ghost in someone's life. I know I did." They kept moving, slower now, the music wrapping around them like a cocoon. Liam's hand slid a little lower on her waist, not possessive, but grounding, like he needed to feel she was real. "Ever wish you could go back?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. "To when things were good?" "All the time," she murmured, her brown eyes locking with his. "But you can't, can you? All you can do is hope there's something left to fix." A tear slipped down her cheek, catching the edge of her mask, and she laughed, a small, broken sound, as she wiped it away. "God, listen to me. I'm a mess tonight." "Nah," Liam said, shaking his head. "You're just honest. That's rare." He wanted to say more, to ask her name, to peel back that silver mask and see the face behind it. But the song ended, fading into a soft hum, and the moment hung there, fragile and unfinished. They stepped apart, hands lingering for a beat too long before letting go. "Thanks for the dance," Sophie said, her voice steadier now but still warm. "You're not as bad as you think." "Same to you," Liam replied, a faint smile tugging at his lips. "Maybe we'll get another one before the night's out." "Maybe," she said, and for the first time, her smile reached her eyes. They didn't know it yet, but that dance had cracked open something neither of them had felt in years. A spark that would burn brighter before the night was through. Let's rewind the clock a bit, peel back the layers of Liam and Sophie's story to see how they got here. Two masked strangers spilling their hearts on a dance floor, not knowing they'd built a life together once. 6 years ago, they weren't the tech titan and the rival COO they are now. They were just Liam and Sophie, two dreamers crazy in love, trying to carve out a future in a cramped Brooklyn apartment with peeling paint and a coffee maker that buzzed like a dying bee. Liam was 28 then, a lanky guy with messy dark hair and those same green eyes. Only back then, they sparkled with ambition instead of exhaustion. He was a coder, a guy who lived in hoodies and spent nights hunched over a laptop, building the bones of what would become Harper Tech. Sophie, 26, was his perfect match. Sharp as a tack, with long black hair she'd tie up in a messy bun while she pored over data spreadsheets. She was an analyst back then, freelancing for startups, and she had this way of seeing patterns no one else could. They met at a tech meetup in Williamsburg, Liam pitching his AI idea, Sophie asking questions that cut straight to the core. By the end of the night, he'd asked her out for coffee, and she'd said yes with a grin that made his knees weak. Their first date was at a hole-in-the-wall diner by the East River. Liam rambled about his dream of revolutionizing AI, while Sophie sketched flowcharts on napkins to help him visualize it. They laughed over burnt fries, and when the sun dipped below the skyline, he took her hand and said, "You're the first person who gets me." 2 years later, they got married in a tiny rooftop ceremony. String lights, a playlist of indie songs, and a cake Sophie baked herself because they couldn't afford a fancy one. It was perfect. The early days were magic. They'd work side by side on the couch, Liam coding while Sophie crunched numbers, passing a pizza box back and forth. Weekends meant cheap trips upstate, hiking trails, sharing a sleeping bag under the stars, dreaming out loud about the future. "Imagine if this takes off," Liam would say, his voice buzzing with excitement. "We'll build something huge. Together." Sophie would nod, resting her head on his chest. "As long as we've got each other, I'm in." But dreams have a way of shifting things. 3 years ago, Harper Tech hit gold, a massive investment from a Silicon Valley firm. Liam went from scrappy coder to CEO overnight, trading hoodies for suits and late-night pizza for boardroom dinners. Sophie cheered him on, proud as hell, even as she climbed her own ladder, landing the COO gig at Nexus AI. They told themselves it was all part of the plan. Two powerhouses building empires side by side, except side by side started meaning phone calls instead of face-to-face, texts instead of talks. The drift was slow at first. Liam's days stretched into nights, meetings, pitches, flights to San Francisco. He'd come home past midnight, crashing on the couch so he wouldn't wake Sophie. She'd wake up to an empty bed, make coffee for one, and head to her own high-stakes world at Nexus AI. She tried to keep them connected, planning dinners with candles and his favorite bourbon-glazed ribs. She'd text him, "Home by 7, I've got a surprise." He'd reply, "I'll try, babe," but then 7 became 9, 9 became 11, and she'd get the inevitable follow-up. "Stuck in a meeting, eat without me." The food went cold, the candles burned out, and Sophie ate alone, staring at the empty chair across the table. One night, about 2 years back, she brought up kids. They were lying in bed, a rare moment when Liam wasn't glued to his phone. Moonlight slipped through the blinds, painting stripes across his face. "What if we had a little one?" she asked, her voice soft, hopeful. "A mini us running around?" Liam smiled, pulling her close. "That'd be amazing, Soph. Let me get the company stable first, okay? Then we'll talk." She nodded, trusting him, but that talk never came. His schedule swallowed it whole. Trips to Tokyo, late-night coding sessions, deals that couldn't wait. She stopped asking, not because she didn't want it, but because she couldn't bear the tired sigh she knew she'd get in return. The apartment got bigger. They moved into a sleek Manhattan penthouse with floor-to-ceiling windows and a view of the skyline, but it felt emptier. Sophie's dinners stopped being a thing. She'd order takeout instead, eating at the counter while the TV droned in the background. Liam barely noticed. He'd stumble in late, mumble a, "Hey, you still up?" and collapse into bed, already half asleep. Their talks shrank to logistics. "Did you pay the electric bill? Yeah, you got that meeting tomorrow?" And the silence between them grew louder than words. It wasn't anger that pulled them apart, not really. No big fights, no slammed doors, just a slow, aching distance, like two ships drifting out of sight. Sophie threw herself into Nexus AI, climbing the ranks, proving she didn't need him to shine. Liam buried himself in Harpertech, chasing the next big win, telling himself it was for their future. But deep down, they both felt it, a hollow space where us used to be. Sophie wondered if he still loved her, or if she'd become just another line item on his to-do list. Liam felt the weight too, though he wouldn't admit it, an emptiness no amount of money could fill. That's how they ended up here, at this masquerade ball, two lost souls in a room full of masks. They didn't know it yet, but the night was about to flip their world upside down, pulling them back to each other in a way neither could have seen coming. The unraveling of Liam and Sophie's marriage didn't come with a bang. No cheating scandals, no screaming matches that woke the neighbors. It was quieter than that, a slow bleed of missed moments and broken promises that carved a canyon between them. But there was one night, a frigid February evening, where that canyon hit its deepest point, a night where they came so close to losing each other for good. It still haunts them both. It started like too many nights before. Sophie was in their penthouse, perched on the edge of the leather couch, a book open in her lap that she hadn't turned a page of in an hour. The city skyline glittered through the windows, all sharp edges and cold light. But inside, the air felt stale, heavy. She'd gotten a text from Liam at 5 p.m. "Home early tonight? Wait up." She'd clung to it like a lifeline, letting herself hope, so she'd cooked. His favorite bourbon-glazed ribs, mashed potatoes whipped with extra butter, a glass of red wine breathing on the counter. She even put on that navy dress he used to love, the one he'd said made her eyes pop. By 7, the table was set. By 9, the candles were dripping wax onto the cloth. By 10, she was still alone. When the door finally clicked open at 10:45, Liam shuffled in, his suit wrinkled, tie slung loose around his neck. His green eyes were dulled with exhaustion, and he dropped his laptop bag by the door with a thud. "Hey, Soph," he muttered, forcing a tired smile. "Sorry, meeting ran late again. You didn't have to wait." That was it, the straw that snapped her. Sophie stood, hands trembling as she gripped the back of the couch. "We need to talk, Liam," she said, her voice low but steady, cutting through the quiet like a knife. He froze halfway to the kitchen, sensing the shift in her tone. "Okay?" he said slowly, turning to face her. He rubbed a hand over his face, trying to shake off the fog of a 14-hour day. "What's up?" She took a deep breath, her brown eyes locked on his, glistening with something raw. "Do you still love me?" The question landed like a punch, stark and unadorned, stripping away all the polite distance they'd built. Liam's jaw tightened, his brows knitting together. "What? Of course I do, Soph. Why would you even ask that?" His voice was sharp, defensive, like she'd accused him of something he couldn't fathom. "Because I don't feel it anymore," she shot back, her voice rising, cracking at the edges. "You're never here, Liam. Not for me. Not for us. I'm alone in this stupid penthouse every night, waiting for you, and you don't even see me anymore. Do you know how long it's been since we've had a real conversation, since you've kept a damn promise?" He flinched, her words slicing through the haze of his fatigue. "You think I want this," he snapped, stepping closer, his hands balling into fists at his sides. "I'm killing myself out there, Soph. Meetings, investors, deadlines. I'm keeping Harpertech alive, keeping us set. You have no idea the pressure I'm under." "No, Liam, you don't get it." Tears spilled down her cheeks now, hot and fast, but she didn't wipe them away. "I don't care about the money or the company. I care about you. I need you here, not some ghost who texts me excuses. I've tried so hard to hold us together, but I'm tired. I don't even know who you are anymore." Her voice broke, and that sound, raw, desperate, hit him harder than anything else. He opened his mouth to argue, to tell her she was wrong, but the words stuck. Instead, he paced, anger and guilt warring inside him. "You think I like this? You think I don't miss you? But if I don't push, we lose everything, this place, the life we've built." Sophie shook her head, stepping back. "We've already lost it, Liam. Not the penthouse. The us. I don't need this life if it means losing you." Her voice dropped to a whisper, barely audible. "I just want the guy who used to dream with me, not this stranger." The room went still, the only sound her soft, choked sobs and his ragged breathing. Liam wanted to reach for her, to fix it, but his feet wouldn't move. He stood there, rooted, as she turned and walked toward the bedroom. The door clicked shut behind her, and the silence that followed was deafening. The next morning, he woke on the couch, a throw blanket tangled around him. The bedroom was empty. Bed made, a note on the pillow in her shaky handwriting. "Liam, I need space. Staying with my sister for a while. Don't call." He clutched it, his chest tightening, knowing he'd pushed her too far. And as the days stretched into weeks without her, that penthouse became a cage, every corner whispering her absence. Back at the masquerade ball, the clock was ticking down to midnight. The jazz band picked up the pace, a lively riff filling the ballroom as guests buzzed with anticipation. The air crackled with excitement. Everyone knew the tradition. When the clock struck 12, the masks came off, and the night's mysteries would unravel. Liam and Sophie stood near the edge of the dance floor, still catching their breath from that slow, soul-bearing dance. Their hands had brushed as they stepped apart, and neither had pulled away too fast, like they were holding onto something they couldn't name. The woman in the emerald dress, Sophie, tilted her head, her silver mask catching the chandelier light. "This has been unexpected," she said, her voice soft but steady, a faint smile playing on her lips. "I didn't think I'd find someone worth talking to tonight." Liam nodded, his green eyes locked on hers through his black mask. "Same here. You've got a way of cutting through the noise." He paused, then added, "I don't even know your name, but I feel like I've known you forever." She laughed, a small, genuine sound that warmed the space between them. "Funny how masks work, huh? Maybe it's better this way. No titles, no baggage, just us." But before he could respond, the host's voice boomed over the speakers. "Ladies and gentlemen, 5 minutes to midnight. Get ready to reveal your true selves." The crowd erupted in cheers, clinking glasses and whispering guesses about who was who. Liam glanced at Sophie, a grin tugging at his lips. "Guess we're about to find out if we're still strangers." She nodded, her brown eyes shimmering with a mix of nerves and curiosity. As the minutes ticked by, they stayed close, trading light banter about the party, the guy in the peacock mask who'd tripped over his own feet, the woman with the gold feathers who'd been flirting with everyone. But underneath it all, there was a tension, a quiet pull drawing them tighter. Then the clock hit 11:59 and the band struck up a dramatic flourish. 10, 9, 8, the crowd chanted, voices rising. Liam and Sophie turned to face each other, hands hovering near their masks. 3, 2, 1. The chimes rang out, sharp and clear, and the room exploded in motion, masks dropping, gasps and laughter rippling through the air. Liam reached up, tugging off his black mask, revealing a strong jaw and those piercing green eyes, his dark hair slightly tousled. Across from him, Sophie slipped off her silver mask, letting it fall as her long black hair spilled over her shoulders, her warm brown eyes wide and unguarded. For a heartbeat, they just stared. Then Liam's breath caught, his voice a stunned whisper. "Sophie, you're my wife?" His hands trembled, disbelief crashing over him like a wave. Sophie's mouth dropped open, her eyes darting over his face, those familiar green eyes, that jawline she'd traced 1,000 times. "Liam? Oh my God, you're the guy I—" She stopped, a shaky laugh escaping her. "You're my husband?" But then the real twist hit. Her expression shifted, a flicker of something sharp cutting through the shock. "Wait," she said, stepping back, her voice tightening. "You're the CEO of Harper Tech? My company's been fighting yours for years, and I never knew. You never told me it was you behind it all." Her hands flew to her hips, the COO in her surfacing. "I'm your rival, Liam." He blinked, the pieces snapping into place. "You're with Nexus AI? The ones who've been undercutting us? Soph, I had no idea. You never said." His voice rose, a mix of awe and frustration. "We've been enemies in boardrooms and didn't even know it?" The crowd around them burst into applause, some whistling, mistaking their stunned exchange for a cute reunion. But for Liam and Sophie, the world shrank to just them. Husband and wife, rivals in business, strangers who'd just bared their souls. Tears welled in Sophie's eyes as she stepped forward, grabbing his jacket. "How did we miss this?" she whispered, half laughing, half crying. Liam pulled her into his arms, his voice thick. "I don't know, Soph, but I'm not letting you go again." And under the chandeliers, amidst the cheers, they held on, two worlds colliding back into one. The masquerade ball faded into a blur of lights and music as Liam and Sophie stood there, wrapped in each other's arms, the shock of their unmasking still buzzing between them. Husband and wife, tech rivals, it was almost too wild to believe. But beneath the chaos of that twist, something clicked back into place, a spark they'd both thought was long gone. That Christmas Eve didn't fix everything in a flash, but it was the start of something new, a second shot they weren't about to waste. The days after were messy, real. Liam cut back on the late nights at Harper Tech, handing off more to his team, even if it meant a few deals slipped through the cracks. Sophie noticed how he'd text her, "Home by 6, promise," and actually show up, jacket slung over his shoulder, green eyes bright with something like hope. They started small, walks through Central Park, the snow crunching under their boots, talking about everything they'd buried, work, dreams, the kid they'd once imagined. Some nights they'd cook together in that penthouse kitchen, Liam butchering onions while Sophie laughed and fixed his grip on the knife. It wasn't perfect, but it was them again. They tried counseling too, sitting across from a guy in a sweater vest who asked hard questions. Liam hated it at first. Spilling his guts to a stranger felt like pulling teeth, but he stuck with it, learning to listen instead of just waiting to talk. Sophie opened up too, letting out the hurt she'd bottled up, the loneliness she'd carried. There were arguments, raw ones, but they fought to fix it, not to win. And one day she told him something that stopped him cold. "I turned down a buyout offer for Harper Tech last month. Didn't want to crush you, even if I didn't know it was you." That hit him. Proof she'd still cared, even at their worst. Time passed and the healing stuck. They moved out of the penthouse, too big, too cold, and into a cozy brownstone upstate where the walls held their laughter instead of echoes. One quiet night, over takeout pizza, Sophie grinned and said, "I'm pregnant." Liam nearly dropped his slice, then tackled her in a hug, both of them laughing through tears. Their son Ethan came along a year later, a wild-held kid with his dad's eyes and his mom's stubborn streak. Years down the line, they built something new together, a small startup for green tech, nothing flashy, just enough to keep their minds sharp and their hearts in it. Harper Tech and Nexus AI were history, sold off or merged, someone else's game now. Instead, they had Ethan, a home filled with noise, and a love that had scars but stood stronger for it. That Christmas Eve had been more than a twist of fate. It was the night they chose each other over everything else, and they never looked back. And there you have it, folks. The wild, beautiful ride of Liam and Sophie. From masked strangers spilling their hearts at a Christmas Eve ball, to finding out they were husband-wife and rivals in the cutthroat world of tech. It's the kind of story that reminds us love can sneak up on you, even when you've lost your way. That night didn't just bring them back together, it gave them a chance to rebuild something real. A family, a future, and a legacy that wasn't about boardrooms or billion-dollar deals, but about the messy, wonderful stuff that matters. What did you think of their journey? Did that double twist wife and rival catch you off guard like it did them? Drop a comment below and let me know. Tell me where you're watching from, too. New York, LA, somewhere across the globe? And hey, if you've got a story idea you'd love to see next, I'm all ears. Hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out on more tales like this. Ones that tug at your heart and keep you guessing. Thanks for joining me today. Until next time, stay warm, stay curious, and take care.